Welcome back to the Cartoon History Channel, and this is Facts Friday 13, American anime versus Japanese anime. And anime is Japanese animation. This is the comparison of American English airings of Japanese anime versus Japanese in its original airing and its original language. First of all, the animation distributors and from the English part of the market and the Japanese market are different. The English distributors for the American market were a company called DiC, and the animation distributors and original animation makers were a company called Toei Animation. They were the animation equivalent of the same people that made the original Power Ranger live action shows. Japanese anime, the way that it was animated in Japan, even though it was in Japanese, and they've done some English translations with the original animation intact in modern times, but back in the Toonami days, which is what I'm talking about in this episode, the original anime, a lot of it, and I mean a lot of it, was heavily edited for the West and the American market by DiC. Like, for instance, there was a lot of drugs and violence and a lot of blue content in the original Japanese anime, and things like Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Digimon, but especially the Toonami type ones that were the battle cartoons like Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon. There was a lot more edge and a darker tone of edge that even edgier than, let's just say, Rocco or Ren and Stimpy. And they toned it down. Like, for instance, Master Roshi from the Dragon Ball franchise was a very, very just unethical type person. An old master of karate and the Dragon Ball fighting styles. That he was a very perverted character, so they heavily edited that character. And there have been examples in the original Japanese anime on other cartoons where of child abuse, and they edited that out to the English translation. DiC really had to do so much editing for the American Western market that it's not like the original show at all. Like in some dying scenes, the character wouldn't die, but they would go into suspended animation, and they would still be with the character in spirit. But in the Japanese anime, if they were fighting, the character was gone until they came back, like a few seasons later, because they were revived. American comics also are based on superheroes and comic, but a lot of the Japanese anime are based on what they call manga, Japanese comics, and the very same kind of shows that when translated to English are based on the same thing, but their comics or graphic novels or mangas are very, very dark. Think of it kind of like The Killing Joke for Batman and those kind of graphic novels, except every one of their series that were in anime are like the Batman The Killing Joke. Sailor Moon was based off something like that. Dragon Ball Z franchise was. It's just Japanese animation and humor has a very, very darker sense of humor. And it's edited in the West because that they tone it down and make it more family friendly. Now there are family friendly elements in the original Japanese, but the American one is just that they completely flip it around and make it into a whole new show. The core basic concept is not the same on the Western market as it is back in the East in Japan. The shows date back past 1997 when Toonami originally started as a late night thing that predated what's known as Adult Swim now. It lasted for 11 years, 97 to '08. It was a Rob 1 and a Rob 2 and a Rob 3. Rob was the host. It was a 3D animation digital robot that was the host of the Toonami. They had Sailor Moon, every kind of Dragon Ball that you could think of. The original Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, and all of the Sailor Moons. They had some of the best shows of the anime of back then. They even had, when they were able to get the rights to it, they even had some Pokemon. But they heavily edited for the Western market, and they weren't the same shows. They took out all the sex, drug, and more adult references that were on the Japanese. And I'm not saying that they should have left it in by any means. I'm just saying that they made it more kid friendly, and it switched the core message of what they were trying to do with a lot of the over there in Japan. Also, back in the 90s and the early 2000s, it was a big thing to add one of those EI or educational information moments. They added bits like Sailor Says and things like that to the end of the cartoons on the Toonami. DiC did to make it more fit the this is a family friendly narrative, and Sailor Says would be like, Eating is great, but don't overeat and don't become too Sailor Says don't become too much of a couch potato or too concerned about your appearance. And grades are good, and you need to things like that. Came back 12 years ago in 2012 on Adult Swim. And the modern Toonami, since it's on Adult Swim, is a bit more edge than it used to be. But the old Toonami was based on the original late night Cartoon Network market, which was aimed towards was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and it was aimed towards kids and teens. So that's why they toned it down. There are hundreds of thousands of different kinds of anime, but Cartoon Network mainly focused on Sailor Moon and the Dragon Ball stuff. The Dragon Ball franchise, which were based on the Sailor Moon and the Dragon Ball Magni. Pokemon was originally on the Kids WB, and it eventually got some time with Toonami and Cartoon Network, but even they toned it down because of racial relations and other bad things. And that famous Porygon episode that got banned in Japan and in America. That's another example of an anime that was on Toonami that the West really toned down from its original Japanese counterpart. That one, of course, that anime franchise is about Ash Ketchum that wants to be the top Pokemon master and wants to catch them all. Starts out with Pikachu as his little lightning mouse pet, his personal Pokemon, and he ends up being a Pokemon master. Another example of, and I'm not saying anything bad about it, but another example of Japanese anime is American in the West. They would heavily censor things like bath scenes and things like that, but they don't in the East. That they're more straightforward with their animation in Japan. That they come out right out and let you see anything and everything. Bad stuff that I've been talking about, drugs, violence, they're very less censor related in the Japanese anime. And the conclusion of this is American English dubs of this anime. They rewrite the history of the shows and from censoring it and stuff. Join me next for Facts Friday 14 and tell me in the comments what you want Facts Friday 14 to be about. And remember to like, subscribe, and comment and tell me how you feel about this episode. in the comments. And remember to hit the notification bell so you always know about my videos every Friday and Saturday at 3. I also have 2 Instagrams that are Cartoon History Channel related. Cartoon History Channel 1 that's devoted to my TikToks, and Cartoon History Channel 2 that's related to this channel. They're both on Instagram. And I also have a TikTok, Cartoon History Channel TikTok, that I upload every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 10:45. Subscribe to my other platforms if you want more cartoon history. I also have a Facebook cartoon history group that I upload every Friday and Saturday at 3, and every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 10:45.